Hi, folks. So, just thinking of that line from one of Terence McKenna's talks where he's speaking about visiting the DMT elves, the basketball dribbling elf machines, if you want to call it. And one of the things they say to him is that you people visit so seldomly. We barely ever see you. And what a nice surprise it is to see you. And I was thinking about that, like, what does that mean? How many other dimensions are out there or are inside, in a way? And I just wanted to mention that to kind of set the stage for what I want to talk about, set the feel, if you will. I was taking a bath now and had a little bit of wine before, and I was just forced to take a bath because, it's just been, I don't know, I had a massage yesterday and it took everything out of me. And this morning I went to a protest very early, and it was just I didn't process my dreams. I didn't get have time to sort of just catch my breath before the day started or whatever it was, and I was just sort of pushed into it. And there's been other things, just the build up of just stress and mental activity and thoughts. A lot of the time, just thoughts and whatever else is going on. We live in a very, very combust, pressurized world, overwhelming, overstimulating, for goodness sake, that we can just get so misplaced often over the time. We can get so anchored into its into its space, into its energy, and the mind helps tremendously. It's not just the mind's fault. It's like I find when the body is tired, or just the mind is tired, or just you haven't had a change of scenery, you haven't had a change of pace, you just haven't had maybe much of existential moments, you haven't been taking psychedelics, you haven't been smoking Mary Jane, you haven't been doing a lot of meditation or something or other, you haven't been really inwardly focused or present inwardly, that the mind, you haven't cleared out, you haven't got a little, you haven't let off the steam of all the impressions and the impact that this world makes on you, and it becomes very, very, very cluttered, very, very busy, and very, very hard to connect to the stillness within, the presence within, the godliness within, the divine space within, the purity within, the simplicity within, if you will, the authenticity of it, the childlike nature of it, right, that lies within. And that's the space that we come from. Now, when we think childlike, again, a whole lot of our images come up, a whole lot of images of being children, of maybe, but it's, it's so much more than that, obviously. And so I was lying in the bath and I realized that it's like, before we enter into these divine spaces within ourselves, that only lie within ourselves, it seems to be, which is so profound. Is the DMT realm out there somewhere on, in Galaxy 9 or Zeta Particular, but whatever, Zubi Canibula or something or other? Is that where it lies? Or is it within? Is it within the psyche? Right? Was it in the subconscious? Is it within the soul and the heart? One of the things I liked about the movie Men in Black was when he opens up the locker. It's like a locker where you got a key and you open the locker, and where you store things, and it's not very big, but there's a whole universe inside there of all these little creatures and whatever it is. And I think one of the creatures throughout, in some time in the movie, says, "You humans," he says, "you think size is really what it's about." It's not about size. I mean, most of this, our being, happens on a molecular level, on an energetic level, and probably so minuscule that we cannot even see it, or we even know that it even exists. So again, we think size, we think space is external, something over there, there's a distance to it or something or other. Well, maybe it's not the case, Maybe we don't realize how intricate it all is and how closely and involved everything is knitted. The fabric of all existence, of all experience, right? And so for myself, I was lying in the bath and realizing imagining in a way my thoughts. Well, this came to me as an image. Like, imagine you're trying to cross a 5-lane highway. Now, 5 lanes in each direction going north and south. And it is chock-a-block. It is, and the cars are speeding, and and you're wanting to cross from the one side to the other. And it just seems absolutely impossible. There's such a resistance. It just seems so overcomplicated, and you can't calculate it. And it's just the racket of these cars. I mean, for some, well, all of us, I think, when we've stopped on the side of the highway to do something or other, and we hear the loud and how intense it is of the cars passing us by. It's like, you're driving like crazy people here, how sometimes I feel when you try to get onto the highway, you don't realize the speed that it's going at. These physical objects that weighing hundreds and hundreds of kilograms and whatever, flying at such a rapid rate. And often of the time, some imbecile behind the wheel, who's talking on their cell phone. I mean, it's such a weird, bizarre reality that we live in. But anyways, so crossing over, crossing that, I'm sure there's a word for it, into the sacred space, into the other realm, if you will, the internal landscape, the inner landscape, that's what it is, takes having to cross to and quiet down that traffic, quietening it down, sitting still, like this is what I was doing. I'll be honest, I got earplugs in, I got my earphones on, I'm listening to something or other, very, very relaxing ambient music. Just had a little bit of wine, that wasn't so necessary, I've put some essential oils in the bath. I've also put some Epsom salt in the bath. And nobody's in the house, which makes a huge difference. It's a Saturday, which also makes a big difference, Saturday evening, which makes a big difference. So the energy is a little bit more supportive. And I'm just quietening and slowing down the thoughts. Slowing it down, slowing it down, slowing it down, until that traffic almost becomes dead still, and finally I'll walk across, I think maybe I haven't heard cheering going on for some time, the neighbors, maybe there's some sports happening, whatever it is, I don't know. And so then you enter into the space, and it's a different realm, it's a different world completely, and there's so much I can say about it. But one of the things that was helping me get to that space in a way was one of these meditations that I've spoken about called the Heartfulness Meditation. Right? And what I was doing, firstly, I started off as, sort of the healing energies of the earth coming through my feet and relaxing every part of my body, every muscle in my body, from my ankles to my calf muscles, to my knees, to my thighs, to my buttocks, and then through my back. And also I've got a headache, folks, so what I was doing was I was envisioning this flow coming and sort of just, tenderizing or just gently sort of rubbing the headache. I haven't taken any pills for it or anything like that. That's why I think I took a bit of wine. I could have taken some CBD, but anyways. And I just feel it like sort of, gently massaging it and easing it and just nurturing it in a way and releasing the tensity and the energy of it and whatever it is. So this is my first process where I was sort of quietening down the body, right? The tension that was running in the muscles, the exhaustion, whatever it is. And also then the headspace. So then I came in with the thoughts and just imagined the ray of being. And I just couldn't feel that was strong enough. So then another part of the meditation is that this is the next part, is that you go to your heart space. And you imagine the heart, right, with a white light, if you will. And again, I don't really like to put colors onto it. It's just what you intuitively feel is coming off it, because again, we become all imagery. And this was my problem. I used to do this meditation, and I used to just think of almost like a candle, if you will, and it's a little flame, just sort of lightening and what do you call it? I don't know, the waves of the frequency of the light, sort of like a ripple in a pond going outwardly. And I thought to myself, well, this doesn't feel true. And I thought to myself, what happens if it's such a bright light, or not even just the bright or the intensity of it, but the strength of it? Like what I was doing for the first time was imagining this vibration, this energy coming off my heart space. And what happened it was caressing my face and my forehead and between my eyes, right, where I really feel the headache intensity. I'm just rubbing the space of my forehead now, just the tensity, the traffic that's going on in my mind, right? All of the impact of today. Like, I'm very sensitive, right? Like I said, it takes me a long time to sort of ease into the day, if I'm able to ease into it at all. In a way, I have these rich, deep dreams, and it's hard for me to transition into the material. Okay, and I've been blessed with a life that I'm able to not have to be up at a certain time, and whatever it is. And so a lot of it is dissolving a lot of the tension that's there, then again opening this inner landscape for me to walk into. Now it's getting a lot more still, and now all of a sudden I feel like my breath is picking up, like I'm not doing this intentionally. I feel the energy of entering into the space. It's like and again, I was just, because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to be visiting, to be walking into the magnitude of this space, to realize my heart is so powerful, the light, the divinity of my heart, the magnitude of my soul. Like, I don't connect with this, and barely any of us connect with this. We don't appreciate it. We size ourselves down to Ricky, to David, to Mark, to Marianne, to Maury, to, Lisa, Joanne, Yolanda, whatever, We limit ourselves down into this facade, almost this necessary facade, and then also just this, all the other, the heaviness of our personalities, of our thoughts, of our impressions, of our programming, of our traumas, of our conditioning, whatever it is, of our story that the world has given us, this dimension that it's given us. And it's like, so I was sitting there and realizing, let me just go with the expansion of the soul. Let me just let it be. And recognizing that it could grow as much as I wanted to grow, that it didn't have a limit to it, that the energy can expand universally. Now, it wasn't necessary for me to go universally in that way, but just the fact that I could get bigger than the bathroom that I was in, and realizing I could go into the complex, I could go into the neighbors' houses, and just with this being of lightful energy, right? And just I could go as far as the next city, as the next town. Now, a lot of it is in the imagination, but a lot of it can be sort of hocus pocus. But we have no idea how things work on an energetic level. We have no idea how large the soul is in this realm, right? We have no idea. Like, the soul can be like the sun, in a way, but on an energetic level. Why not? Why is there limitation? Why is there amount of space? If it is part of the divine, and it comes and it's a divine space, why would it be limited in any which way or form in this dimension, from a spatial point of view? Why? That's just a limited thought, again, of the space, whatever it is, time and duration. You can get into it that the soul is timeless. It's not 39 years old, that's my age, or whatever it is. That's my experience. The soul, I don't know how to put it. But the soul is more than just 39 years old, or Aaron G, or something or other. Is it my soul? Is it the universal soul? I think it's both. I think we simultaneously connected, because if there's no disconnection from God, right? If there's no separation, you see, if there's no separation, then Yeah. I mean, this is just what more can I say about that? And again, it's not because, oh, you're such a wonderful being and you give charity. And I mean, no, not charity. This is part of it. Yes, yes, yes. But this is part of your work, your individual work, right? But lo and behold, whether you like it or not, this is what you're a part of. This is what you are about. Whether you like it or not. 24/7, 7 days a week. I mean, it's 24/7. Yeah, 7 days a week, 24 hours, 7 days a week. From all time and space. This is it, baby. This is what you're connected to. Right? And it has no time, space, limitations, nothing whatsoever. But can you see like how sacred that space is of entering into that realm, right? Entering into that divine space. Can we see? And do you see how hard it is to leave the baggage, behind when we enter that space? Because you can't walk in there with a busy mind, right? You can't walk in there with ego, right? You can't walk in there with assumption. Like for myself, I can see my mind is trying to calculate, it's trying to size up, it's trying to rationalize this all. It's trying to calm my nerves, to rationalize it, to explain it. And I'm saying, just let it be, just go with it, just be open. Before in the past, I think, well, you're delving into some kind of dark magic, or you delving into some kind of psychosis here, or something like that. You make believe. And I'm like, you don't really know, your imagination, maybe it's a Disney movie that you once saw, something like that. And I'm like, that's not loving. Let love lead the way first and foremost. Let me just be open. Let me just be willing. Let me just be willing. And that's what's very hard when you take a psychedelic. It's very, very hard to be willing and to be able, because it for many different reasons. I mean, and you leave so much behind. So you're going to leave so much behind, and that's why it's such a pure space, because it's saying, when you come here, like one of the things that I was feeling was, well, what can the space teach me? What can it show me? What can it offer me? More than just for what it is. Like, how does it help me returning back to the other side of the highway? When I go back into this realm, how does this help me? What can it show me? And for one, the most important thing is that this exists, and this is all the time, and this is, like a phone call away, not even a phone call away. But I mean, it does take a tapping into and a working to get to. So what else can this show me? One of the things that it showed me, I mean, there's many things, folks. We could sit for years, lifetimes, discussing what it can show us in this dimension, what it can reveal to us about ourselves, the adventure, the spirit. Okay, obviously, but one of the things for now, what it showed me was that each individual is on their own particular journey. And that's it. Like, each individual is on their own journey, and you do not necessarily need to know where they are holding and what is going on for them. Because it's like, when you're writing a test, this came to me, when you're writing a test at school, it's not important how the other person is doing in the test, who's sitting 5 rows down from you or something like that, and 5 desks down. It doesn't matter right then and then. What matters is what's going on for you? How are you doing in your test and your exam? How are you doing? Right? And first and foremost, now I'm not saying we should never be concerned about it, or interested or curious about how other people are doing in their own exam. But it's very, very, very hard to know, because they're writing a very different curriculum. They're writing a very different kind of exam than you are in the physical. Right? Their specifics, their specifications is very much a lot to their, are specific, are unique, exclusive to them. So it is very hard, but I do think at the same time that we are able to see how others are doing in regards to their awareness of divinity and consciousness of soul and spirit in a way, because it's mostly about intention. Now, I'm getting into realms which I don't necessarily understand, but I feel, because I get confused all the time. Like, we live in a world now when you look at the sheeple, right, if you want to call them that, and they really are, to a certain degree, or the zombies, and they really are, right, and the Satanists would say, oh, really are, in a way, without them even realizing, and whatever it is, and you look around and you see, and you just can't, it's so confusing sometimes, because sometimes they seem like they're good people, other times they just seem like they're blatantly ignorant, and the same person can be like that. Because people are very inconsistent, folks. Very, very highly inconsistent. The very people in your life, one day you're connecting with them, one day you're on the same wavelength as them, next hour you're completely not. Now, I think as conscious individuals, we're more consistent, right? We become more consistent because, again, we're not waved and moved by mood and personality all the time and emotions all the time. We find more of a steadier balance, in a sense. But anyway, that's something else. So it's hard. But I like to try and understand it and see, but it is very, very hard, But, and it's hard in this world to not look and judge and say, you know what, if everybody else wasn't so asleep, then the CV story, I'm just putting it realistically now up to where we are. The CV story wouldn't be going on, the governments wouldn't be able to do what they do, we wouldn't pollute the world, we wouldn't be hurting the animals like we're doing, we wouldn't be corrupting the children's minds and whatever it is. Like, people wake up. Very, very hard. It's very, very hard not to act with compassion, or to be motivated by compassion. And I don't think one can be all the time. This is very tricky, folks. It's very hard. But what I'm saying is that each and every person, when I'm in the space, the sacred space, or the psychedelic space, the higher states of consciousness, the spiritual state, whatever you want to call it, the inner temple, the inner landscape, that each individual person has their part to play. Every individual is part and parcel of the Truman Show. Not just I'm saying of the Truman Show, of the act, yes, but are stage members, are props, are part. Every single person, like in a movie, is supposed to be the part that they are supposed to be, and they are all contracted to, and they are all subjected to. We are not necessarily free in that way. And I'm not talking about in a Truman Show in the Matrix. I'm talking about in this 3D realm, right? That we all, even the bad guys, which is very, very hard to come to terms, because I don't understand things like pedophilia and how people can get away with it. I don't understand. These things are not rational to understand, how governments and the elites can do what they do. I don't understand it. I can't fathom that people that have been through such traumas, children, innocence, I can't understand these things. But lo and behold, when we reach again into the sacred, into the psychedelic, into the spiritual, into the conscious space, we are like children. And all seems to be explained and understood in a way in that space to a certain degree, like on a psychedelic, in the high states consciousness. You can see the method in the madness. But when you come back to this realm and your emotions are charged and your judgments are, reared and your concerns are going, rightly so, it's very, very hard. And I think this is sometimes where people get into the idea, well, just don't get involved with sometimes the darkness in the world because it's supposed to be dark, which creates a sense of apathy, which is not true. I don't think, one of our services is the sacrifice of, bringing light to where there is dark, at often of the time our own costs. Isn't that the story of Jesus? Right? So again, this is where the non-dual or dual sort of nature comes in. Well, it has to be there, so don't bother it. Don't the negative or the dark, because without the dark there wouldn't be the light. Yes, but the dark is your opportunity, because where do you there's darkness within yourself, you bring light. you know. You're balancing out. There has to be a balance. And so you try and balance it out as best as you can in the world. And maybe you're not fighting necessarily the darkness head on, but maybe you're helping to fight poverty, you're helping to fight starvation, you're helping to fight, sickness and whatever it is. You're helping to fight depravity, you're helping to bring consciousness and awareness into the world. Because that's part of our soul's evolution, the evolution of the soul, the evolution of the spirit. Otherwise, what also at the same time are we doing here? Because our lives are not just about our own spiritual soulful growth, but the spiritual soulful growth of others as well. Right? And so again, as I think Alan Watts says, when one of the great philosophers, even himself, I don't want to speak out of turn, had an acid experience, took some acid and came back, and I think his answer was that the whole world smells of almonds, or something like that. I don't know, something that was incomprehensible in a way, because it's so hard to bring back from the psychedelic realm and bring it down into the material, into the rational, and try and make sense of it. It's very, very difficult, and that's why the innocence of the child, in a way, or a childlike, I think it was, you can only enter into the kingdom of heaven by becoming a child, something or other from the New Testament, I believe. That idea that at the same time there are real parents. In this realm, we don't really have real parents or grandparents in a way, so to speak, like universal. Some of us, some yes, some, but not really. I mean, anyways, I'm saying universal parents. I'm saying universal grandparents. Like, and there's a proper family unit. It's proper family, and it's healthy and it's balanced. And what I'm saying is that it's not just like a muck. If you look at the world today, it's kind of like a mess, and I think it's deliberately made to be that way. Like, on the surface of things, it looks like, the parents have left the child for the weekend by himself, and he's just throwing an absolute party, and the house is a wreck. They've hired some animals from an animal farm or something like that. You know what I mean? And everything is just disarray. People are drunk in the house. They're breaking the windows. They're just peeing on the Persian carpets. It's just debaucherous. They're doing cocaine in the parents' bedroom. You know what I'm saying? It's just debaucherous. It just seems like it's out of control. There's no authority. There's no discipline. There's nothing. It's madness. And that's what this world seems to be about. Like the presidents, it just seems like there's just a bunch of so-called children running around, or whatever it is, playing with nuclear weapons and just pressing buttons. Like you think monkeys who, find their way into some kind of nuclear plant, and they're just tapping the buttons on the boards, on the dashboards or something like that. What does this do? Turning this key. They don't know what they're doing, and that's what it kind of feels like. But in the sacred space, in the conscious space, it is all it's all governed, it's all taken care of, it's all overseen, and everything has its rightful place, and then anyway, so that's the roots, and then we connected from that the roots of that. And I do feel that it's a very, very noble place. It's a very, very honorable, sacred place. It's a very loving, it's not like, AWOL, God's gone AWOL, or is absenteed or something like that. You know what I mean? Or something or other. In this world, it appears that way. That's why I'm saying there doesn't seem like there's much of a family unit, and the mother and the father and the healthiness, and the grandparents and the aunts, and whatever it is, and everyone's got their place in that way, and everybody's living and fulfilling their role that they are doing as an adult, as mature, as a father is to a father, a father and a son, and everybody's got their role. They're playing it succinctly, like, in the animal kingdom. It's not like a bird is pretending to be a chicken or something like that, whatever it is, or a dog's trying to be a cat. It's not like that. And in this world, we have that. We have a whole mess that's going on. Men becoming like women, and women becoming like men, and the grandparents that are more like children, So it's very hard. It's very hard to to coexist. It's very difficult, but it's very, very necessary. And for myself, I don't know, I think if I smoked Mary Jane, it would help. But I haven't smoked for many years to get more into these spaces, right, into these places. But what I'm saying is that it's available for everybody without necessarily the need of psychedelics, right? But with presence. With presence, it can be done, I really feel. I find water helps, you know, imagination helps, visuals help in your body, going through your body, entering into your inner landscape, if you will, right? Music, a little bit of music can help, depending on who you are. Maybe only psychedelics work for you, but I'm just saying that I think that how the universe made it is that it's available for everybody all the time. But it's very, very hard. It's very hard to do it on a Monday morning, right? When you're dropping the children off at school, or you're going to work, or you're doing the shopping, or something like that. It's very hard to do it in the city. The energy is not really for it. It's very hard to do it. You know, when you've got a lot on your plate, when you've got a lot of stresses to do, it's not available to you. You know, it's not available to you. And so we try and make the time. We try and say, okay, in the evening most likely, it doesn't have to be, but like for myself in the evening, okay, no more YouTube. No, enough. Okay, so I'm going to miss out on all the videos, you know, that all my subscribers, the people that I'm subscribed to, are going to upload. I'm not going to fall behind. So what? Whatever. I'm not interested. What I'm going to learn going inwardly in that sacred space and the healingness of it is more than I'm going to learn, most likely, from any of these videos. Right? Or if I'm learning something from the videos, at least let me, you know, because I do that. I watch one video, and then I watch the next, right after the other one. I don't sink in, I don't let it sink in. Even this video here for you folks, you're going to hear this. It'll make a small impact. Although I think this is a pretty good video, but it'll make a more. But eventually it'll be, okay, what's the next video? What's the next video? What's the next video? We're not stepping away and thinking about or feeling about or learning about what we've just been absorbed in, what we've been experiencing. What has the person been teaching? What has the teacher been teaching us? You know, what has the other been informing us about? Like, we don't really do that. We don't have the time. I mean, I remember for myself when I did ayahuasca with some people that I knew, like the day after, it was a Sunday morning. I mean, the people that I went with were attending a wedding in the afternoon. The guy was a guitarist. The other guy was the lead singer of the band, you know, for the wedding. And I think the other guy was, I can't remember, but like I was thinking, whoa, hold on a minute, you haven't let it register, you haven't digested any of it. It's like a dream, folks. As soon as you wake up from, you know, dreaming in the morning, and you check your cell phone, or you get distracted, you know, the dog jumps on you, you know, your kids or whatever, whatever it might be, the alarm for your car's going off, you run outside, the dream is gone. But if you sit with it, and you try and grasp it, you try and get to it, you try and, you know, incorporate the space that you were in, like the teachings of it, the insights of it, the energy of it, then it can sit for a little bit. It can still sit, you know, and you can ponder over it and keep it, you know, with you. But as soon as the day goes on, you know, and thank goodness for that in a way. Can you imagine if the dreams just constantly lingered, because it's just so much information, it's just so much overload, you know? So can you imagine how exhausting that would be? And how much more, like, what information is necessary? But certainly, you know, coming back, I'm saying on YouTube all the time, a lot of the information is not necessary. Again, I'm going to have to start cutting down on the people that I'm subscribed to. That's just too much. And so we don't let it sift in, we don't let it register, we don't let it feel. And so for myself, I say, no YouTube. I'm just going to sit, I'm going to register, I'm going to feel, I'm going to discover, I'm going to explore, I'm going to take stock. Because inwardly, right now, is what I'm actually neglecting. Because again, the further we move away from the sacred within us, the inner landscape, right, the interdimensional, the more we become more of this realm, the more we become the actors in the Truman Show, the more the ego takes place, the more the mind is operating, thoughts all the time, judgments all the time, contemplations all the time, and some of it is good, but like I would say maybe 80% of it's just trash, maybe even more, like 90% of it's just like not helping, like just does not help me. Like a lot of it does not help me. I see it, it's like random, and I've got to throw that away, that thought, throw it away, that thought. Some of the thoughts are so frustrating. Some of them are just so stupid or so incessant. And it's like, sometimes I feel like, I don't know, I'm using a computer from, the 90s, and it's just so slow, and it's just so like, I can't work with this thing, I don't know, it keeps freezing, or like I have to wait 5 seconds every time I write a word for it to catch up. I'm just saying it's tedious, it's arduous. It's like the mind is also like that. It's difficult, it's draining, it's thinking on its own. I'm walking around the house and it's, and it's all over the show. I'm going outside, I'm witnessing and I'm observing, and observations are good, but like, the mind is also just joining in, and it's like, so it feels like it's really, really heavy, but not when you're in that realm. Now, I know this is for others, but I really find as well that, and this is peculiar, I know, I really find, and it's in a different way, that the orgasm, right, also is a very, very peaceful and loving space. Now you can say, yes, it's just chemicals that are firing dopamine or whatever it is, I don't know, that's going on in the brain. Correct. But I've also found it slows things down and it comforts the body tremendously. Isn't that what maybe, do you think that people, with drug addictions have, not maybe necessarily that are trying to boost ego, with cocaine or heroin or something like that, but that's the escape that they're looking for, right? Is what we're really seeking in the escape with drugs. Yes, is to disconnect. I mean, and not so much with alcohol, I would say. So it gets tricky, and this is not a set in stone thing, but is that what the soul is actually longing for is for that piece of spirit, of consciousness, of that space of quiet, where the body is not in pain, where the mind is not tripping over itself, right? Where the thoughts, the emotions are not overwhelming and raging. We're just looking for that stillness. We're just looking for that still point. And maybe that's what drives us when we have to drive for food, when we need to get that from sugars, we have to get that from porn or something like that, right? Because we have that void. And so we need these kind of stimulants from coffee, or we need these kind of stimulants, nicotine in a way, in order for us to sort of still the mind and still the body and just quietening it all down. TV does that, obviously, but not in the healthy way. That's the wrong direction. But we go in that direction because we've lost touch with how to get back in the right direction. So that's why I think sex can be addictive in a way, or orgasm can be addictive, or masturbation can be addictive. I mean, yes, there is the sexual urges, there is the body's urges. There's no question about it. But I think the sort of the highness of it, to be high, to get high, folks. That's what we're trying to do. I mean, that's what we need to be doing, is be getting high all the time, high on life. And again, we can't rely on any substances to do it, because eventually those substances will lead us astray. And I think that's what happened with me and Mary Jane, with cannabis. I think I was abusing. I think I was codependent. And so the relationship went south, pear-shaped, if you will. Anyway, I'll start ending off here, folks, but we need to be visiting these places. It's not the places, it's space. It's the space often to refresh, to revive, to remember, to connect, reconnect. We've always been connected to, but reconnect, right? We need to be doing it often, and we need to have the discipline of switching off our lives, right? and doing it once a week, twice a week. Finding that sacred time, that time of prayer, because it is a time of prayer, time of deep connection, deep relationship, where we switch the world off, we switch our darn phones off. I mean, for heaven's sake, you know, we light a candle, we light some incense, we put on some music, I don't know, we break out our Zen bowls, is it Zen bowls? Whatever it is, and that's what we do. No, we take a psychedelic, we smoke some Mary Jane, we eat some space cookies or something like that. I don't know, but don't rely so much on externals. The breath is potent, folks, potent to focus on. The visualization, the imagination is potent. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, folks, we just don't want to get caught up in the humdrum. We don't want to get caught up in the low vibrational energy. We don't want to become so identified with it. You know, we're needing to remember what we are a part of and what this is about. And can you imagine how many people on this planet have no clue about this, the inner landscape? Have no clue whatsoever that 99% of the time they're stuck in ego? How painful that is, what a hell that is, what a misery it is. Because what I'm saying is that their soul energy is going into that and that alone most of the time. And so maybe it doesn't look like they're having such a hard time. But when they come back to the soulful space, right, the inner landscapes, it's the reconnection. I don't know, maybe in death it's maybe not that intense, but I'm saying in any time and space in this life. I mean, I know when you first approach this, how terrifying it is. It's the last place you want to go. You know, when you take a psychedelic, what Terence McKenna speaks about, like you take whatever the heroic dose, and he feels like the ocean has just risen by 30 meters in size or something like that, and the waves are coming for you. The world becomes alive from every angle and every single place. You know, you think your neighbors are going to knock on your door at any second. You think the tree is going to fall on your house. You're not prepared. It just feels, because there is such an energy. Now, I know that's a lot of neuroses in the mind, whatever it is, but because I think a lot of the time we're just entering into this warped speed. It's not speed, but this, because we I don't know, we just, it's such an elevation. It's such an elevation that when we enter it, it's just, I mean, I'm speaking now and I don't have the words for it, but it is so exponential. It is so irrational. It is so, you become so small in a sense, and the parts of your ego and the parts of your victimhood and the parts of your lack of motivation or potential that you haven't used or exercised, everything like it just burns you. You know? It's a pain. And whatever it is, the amount of material gain and ego and possessions and personality is an absolute weight, and you have to go through the eye of the needle, and that has to all be burnt off, and it is terrifying in the beginning, but it's important because that's the screening, that's the filtering, that's the cleansing. You know, that's when you really, it brushes you. It's like an iron brush, you know. And there's a word for that. Exfoliates you, exfoliates ego, personality, you know, grandiosity, material possession, time, space, duality. I mean, it's funny because we go into it every night when we sleep, but in a way, but not really. So yeah, folks, we've got to be visiting the sacred as often as we can, right? For those very reasons. You know, absolutely. Alright, folks, we'll end off on that for now. Thank you for taking the time in this space, for giving me the opportunity to talk and to share and to feel like as well I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part by sharing this, and assisting others where I can. Absolutely. All right, folks, wishing you well, all the best, and take care.